It happened on the third day of the offensive, just before dawn, when the sky was still an angry shade of grey and the ground was soaked with the cold sweat of night rain, the kind that made everything harder to see and even harder to feel. I don't remember the exact moment the blast hit us, only the pressure, the sound like the sky splitting in half, and the sudden silence that followed. I remember thinking I was dead because I couldn't hear anything, couldn't move my legs, and my arms felt like sandbags strapped to my chest. I was face down in the mud, my rifle gone, the rest of my unit scattered or silent, and somewhere in the distance, distant but creeping closer, I could hear the slow crack of boots and the snap of broken branches. I tried to lift my head, just enough to see shapes, blurry, low to the ground, like shadows crawling through fog. I couldn't call for help. My mouth was filled with blood and dirt. My radio was smashed. I didn't know how long I lay there, slipping in and out of consciousness, but I know what I saw when my eyes finally cleared. A man, not one of ours, his uniform wrong, his helmet shaped differently, standing still a few meters away and staring directly at me. I wanted to panic, to scream, to raise a fist or drag myself back, but I couldn't move. I blinked hard, once, twice, expecting a shot, but the shot didn't come. The man looked around slowly, crouched beside me, and I saw in that instant that he wasn't much older than I was. He didn't speak. He didn't threaten. He just looked down at me with something I didn't recognize at first, something dangerously close to concern. I remember his eyes more than anything else, not because they were kind or familiar, but because they weren't cold, and that alone made no sense. Enemy soldiers were supposed to be merciless, efficient, not this. He said something I couldn't understand in his language, words that felt soft and urgent, then pulled a scarf from around his neck and pressed it against my leg. That's when I realized. He was trying to stop the bleeding. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to trust him. My instinct screamed that this was some kind of trap or trick. But what choice did I have? I was dying. Every second my vision dimmed. Every breath came harder. And yet he worked fast, almost like he'd done it before. He pulled off his gloves, tore fabric from his own jacket to bind my thigh, checked my pulse, and lifted me, not harshly, but as if I mattered. I tried to speak, to ask why, to warn him that someone might see, but he only shook his head and whispered, "Quiet." Then he started walking. I don't know how he managed it. I wasn't light, and he wasn't much bigger than me, but he carried me like it was the only thing in the world he had to do, through brush, past broken trees, across torn-up dirt and shattered branches. He avoided paths, avoided the noise. We moved through silence, just his breath and mine, the rustle of gear, the occasional grunt when I shifted too much, and the pain surged through my side like fire. At some point, I blacked out again. When I woke, I was propped against a tree trunk under a heavy camouflage net, the smell of antiseptic faint but real, and my leg tightly wrapped. The man sat across from me, watching the terrain, alert but calm. He offered me water. I took it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I should say anything. "Why?" I croaked finally. My voice was weak, unfamiliar. He looked over at me and said nothing for a long time. Then, softly, in broken English, "Not all enemies want to kill." He didn't smile. He didn't wait for me to reply, just turned his attention back to the forest beyond. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. It was hard to tell. He fed me something from his pack, dry, tasteless, but it kept me awake. When I tried to stand, I collapsed. He caught me before I hit the ground. There was something deeply humiliating about needing help from the other side, but it was swallowed by the fact that without him, I'd already be dead. Eventually, he carried me again, through trees and dusk and danger. We passed places that echoed with distant gunfire, where other soldiers might have shot us both without asking questions. But somehow, he avoided them all. I never saw him panic, never saw him hesitate. He was like a ghost moving through land that wanted us gone. When night came, we stopped near a small ravine. He built a tiny fire, no smoke, low to the ground, shielded by stone. I watched him as he stared into the flames, the light dancing on his tired face. "What's your name?" I asked. He didn't answer. I tried again, slower. "Your name?" He looked at me then, a long, unreadable stare. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You don't need to remember." I frowned. "But I want to." He gave a small shake of his head, like it wasn't up for discussion. "You live. That's enough." And then he got up, adjusted his gear, and said, "Tomorrow you'll be close to your people. I'll take you there." I didn't sleep much that night. My body was wrecked, but my mind buzzed with questions. Who was he? Why did he save me? What would happen when we reached my lines? Would he disappear? Get captured? Shot? Part of me didn't believe this was real. Maybe it was the fever. Maybe I was already dead, and this was some twisted afterlife. But morning came, and he was still there, and we kept walking, limping, crawling, staggering, but moving, until he stopped at the edge of a dry creek bed and pointed. "That way. Your people. 1 kilometer." I looked in the direction he indicated, heart pounding, then back at him. "Come with me. You saved my life. They won't shoot." He gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe, but I can't." "Why not?" "Because," he said simply, "I have my war too." And with that, before I could ask another word, he stepped back into the trees. I shouted after him. Nothing. I tried to follow. Couldn't. My body gave out. But someone heard me. My people found me. They pulled me to safety, asked me how I'd survived, where I'd been, who'd carried me. I didn't know what to say. I just whispered, "An enemy." And they looked at me like I was mad. The days after my rescue were a blur of hospital rooms, sterile smells, and endless questions that I couldn't answer. My leg was broken badly, torn muscles and shattered bone, making every movement agony, but it was the silence around the story of my rescue that haunted me most. The doctors patched me up, the medics moved efficiently, but none of them could understand how I had survived in no man's land for nearly 24 hours without food or water, carried by a stranger who should have been my enemy. The commanders asked for details, and all I could offer was a fragmented memory of a man with eyes that held no hatred, who saved me without a word of his name or his intentions. Rumors spread fast in the unit. Some called it a miracle, others whispered of ghosts and spies. But I couldn't shake the weight of that man's silence, the way he had vanished like a shadow, just when I thought I owed him everything. The nurses brought me letters from home, and I found myself writing back, not about my wounds or my pain, but about the man who saved me, about the idea that sometimes even enemies share more humanity than we imagine. My comrades tried to cheer me up, but I was lost in memories and questions. How could someone from the other side risk everything for me? Was it guilt? Duty? Compassion? Or something deeper, something unspeakable in war's harsh logic? As I healed, I began to ask around, quietly, carefully, hoping to find someone who might know about the mysterious soldier. I scoured reports of enemy patrols, checked lists of missing men, but there was no name, no record, no clue. It was as if he had never existed except in the fragments of my memory. Yet I refused to let it go. In the quiet nights, when the pain in my leg throbbed and sleep was a stranger, I pictured him. The worn jacket, the careful hands, the scarred face half hidden by shadow. I imagined his life, his fears, his reasons, his own battles fought quietly behind enemy lines. I wrote letters to myself, to him, letters I never sent, filled with questions and thanks and apologies for not knowing who he was. The war dragged on, but something inside me shifted. That nameless enemy had reminded me of something fundamental. War is never just black and white. It's a tangled web of stories, of broken men caught on both sides, each struggling to survive and hold on to their own humanity. One afternoon, months after my return from the front, a fellow soldier handed me a small package without a word. Inside was a simple, worn scarf, green and faded, the same color I remembered from the man who saved me. Along with it, a note written in careful script. for the man who needed help, from the one who understood. I stared at it, disbelief and hope twisting inside me. No name, no address, just those few words that were both a message and a farewell. The gift was a lifeline, but also a reminder that some connections are fragile and fleeting. The war ended weeks later, and I was discharged, my body scarred, but my spirit marked in ways deeper than wounds. I tried to return to normal life, but the silence about that man kept pulling me back into the past. I scoured forums and networks, tried contacting anyone who might have been on the opposite side during that battle. Friends and family listened with polite sympathy, but couldn't grasp how much that one encounter had changed me. I became obsessed with the idea of finding him, not to thank, not to confront, but to understand. Years passed, and life slowly stitched itself back together, but the memory of that nameless soldier never faded from my mind. I carried his silence like a secret wound, the weight of gratitude tangled with questions that had no answers. I often found myself standing at the edge of quiet forests, imagining the path we had taken, the unseen dangers we had avoided together. Sometimes I caught myself whispering into the wind, hoping it would carry my words to wherever he might be. I kept the scarf close, tattered and faded, a tangible link to a moment of grace amid chaos. I shared my story in interviews, in veterans groups, in conversations with strangers who didn't always understand the complexity of war, but who listened when I spoke of mercy crossing battle lines. And then, one cold autumn evening, I received a letter. No return address, just a familiar script on weathered paper. Inside was a simple message. You live because I chose to carry you. Remember that choice. There was no name, no signature, only that haunting echo of a man who had vanished but left a mark deeper than wounds. That letter brought tears I didn't know I was holding back. It was closure and opening all at once, a reminder that even in silence, a connection can endure. I kept it with the scarf, framed together on the wall of my small apartment, a daily reminder that humanity can be found even in the unlikeliest places. The war had taken much from me, but it had also given a lesson I would carry forever, that kindness is the most powerful weapon, and mercy the greatest courage. And though I never learned his name, I carry his story as a part of my own, a testament to the fact that sometimes the enemy is the one who saves you, without a word spoken, leaving only hope behind.